Blumhouse is killing it in the horror genre and disrupting the traditional Hollywood method of producing movies. They have reinvented what it means to make creative and sometimes thought-provoking films on a micro-budget, a first in the horror genre. So, who is behind this renaissance of horror?
Hi! Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to scare you.
I love scary movies. I love weird stuff. And the people who work at the company love scary movies.
In the year 2000, Jason Blum founded Blumhouse Productions. Blum has consistently been vocal about letting the filmmakers retain creative control over their films. That, alongside the requirement to keep the budget extremely small, has allowed Blumhouse continued success over the last 15 years.
The formula in broad strokes is we only make low-budget movies. We get paid nothing. The directors get paid as little as we're allowed, which is scale. The actors get paid as little as they're allowed, which is scale. And the pitch to the filmmaker coming in, my greatest successes, or our greatest successes, have been with filmmakers who kind of had a hit and then kind of gone off a little bit. So James Wan did Saw, and he did 2 movies for Universal you've never heard of, and he came into my office and he is pissed.
They're in movie jail.
They're in movie jail. They're pissed at the system. And one of the biggest reasons we get mad at the system is we go to work for a studio, the studio tells us what to do, the movie bombs, we get blamed. So we, being the filmmakers, get blamed. So that is a very powerful tool that our company uses, and we say to James, or whoever it may be, can't promise you a hit, but I'm going to give you final cut, and I promise the movie will be your own.
Why are they doing this?
Blum enjoys taking a chance on a film. If the movie bombs financially, then they don't take a huge hit to their company, and they chalk it up to a lesson learned.
It's almost hit-proof. You make a movie, you screen it, we think we got a49 times out of 50 on that movie, we do well. The bar is so low, the movie costs $5 million. If it opens to 10 and gets to 23, it's not like a home run, but it's a success. Everyone made a little bit of money. If the movie doesn't come out well, it goes to iTunes.
Rarely do they produce films with a budget over $5 million. Sequels, or well-known properties, are the only times the budget will increase beyond $5 million.
Sequels, guaranteed release date before we start. We have proven IP, so we have a proven...
You made The Purge.
We still make
You can
sequels
make
a lot less money than studios, but our sequels are more closer to 10 than 5.
Smaller budgets also mean a less glamorous cast of big-name actors. Blum believes that A-list actors detract from a horror film.
Scary movies are actually hurt by having movie stars in them. When you have a huge star in a scary movie, it actually makes the movie less scary because the people are watching this movie star in this, you're jumped out of the movie all the time.
This template is most evident in the box office phenomenon, Paranormal Activity. Paranormal Activity was released in 2009 and was made for a mere $15,000, yet grossed over $200 million.
We're gonna have a very interesting time capturing whatever paranormal phenomena is occurring or is not occurring.
This was an unprecedented amount of money and jump-started the success of Blumhouse.
Hearing a weird sound.
Something's here. I feel it breathing on me.
It showed that throwing big money at a big franchise isn't the only way to generate revenue.
Oh my God.
If you do try to play games with it, that's inviting it in.
Sometimes, exploiting a common fear through an inventive filmmaking style is enough to generate packed theaters. Paranormal Activity not only brought horror back into the limelight, it also kick-started the found footage genre once again in Hollywood.
I'm in control.
You're not in control. What's happening to me?
Many filmmakers have tried to replicate the found footage success of Paranormal Activity, but few have come close to its critical and commercial achievements. Following Paranormal Activity, Blumhouse went on to produce multiple other films that again and again earned their budget back tenfold. Blum was onto something, and the company was incredibly successful.
We all wish that we could just become someone else.
Amidst their successes, not every Blumhouse flick is a slam dunk.
She'll thank me later.
We have many records. We have a record for the lowest weekend gross of a wide release film. So a film released over 2,000 screens, and the lowest number possible, I think it did like 1.1 for the weekend, which is a record for it's the lowest grossing wide release film ever of all time.
Do you guys want to guess what that movie's called? No.
It was called Gem and the Holograms. It was a lesson to stay in scary. I was trying to get fancy, do kids movies.
You might be wondering why Jason Blum even produced a non-horror film.
I got a lot going on up there, but mostly we do scary movies, and that's what I love. But every so often, if we look at something that's terrific and not scary, like Whiplash or Normal Heart, we'll do that too.
At the time of this video, out of Blumhouse's 78 feature films, fewer than 10 have a budget over $5 million. There's no doubt Blumhouse has capitalized on an inventive model and will continue to break box office records.
We're on.
2018's Halloween just received acclaim for making the most amount of money ever in the slasher genre, beating out the original Scream from 1996. However, inflation should be taken into account when articles publish headlines like this. Regardless, horror sells, and people love a good horror flick.
Do you think there's a resurgence of horror films now?
You think?
This year alone, the Hollywood Fright Fest included A Quiet Place, The Meg, and The Nun.
Hello.
And last year, Stephen King's It earned more than $700 million. Worldwide.
There are so many subgenres of horror, and horror changes depending on what the cultural and social landscape looks like.
I kind of feel like I agree in terms of horror being cyclical. I think that horror right now is having such a profound moment, and it's so right because we're living in uncertain and scary times. And I think that people need a place to put their fear. And so I think that's why horror movies are having such a big moment now, because I think people are afraid, and I think people are sort of looking at the world around them, and it's a very scary place. And so I feel that there tends to be a connection there. Mm-hmm. What's cool about what's happening now is that because there are producers like Blum who are risk takers and who are willing to sort of look at things differently. I mean, Get Out was such an amazing movie, and it couldn't have come at a better time. Like, it was the perfect timing for that movie, and that's kind of the magic of Blumhouse, is that they aren't afraid to take risks. They're not just looking at a cash grab horror movie. They're looking at how can our movie sort of reflect what's happening in society right now. And so there's a certain elevated approach to everything that they do, and I think we're seeing a lot of that happen now.
Blumhouse takes a lot of pride in creating layered horror films and incorporating some sort of social commentary. For example, Get Out takes a look at racial stereotypes.
I didn't ask who was driving, I asked to see his ID.
Call me Dean and you hug me, my man.
So how long has this been going on, this thing?
I felt like there was this void in the way we talk about race, especially at the time when I wrote it, which was actually a very similar time to when we wrote the Obama Luther translator sketch. We felt like racism was not being called out sufficiently enough for us.
You said you're trying to tell your own truth. What is that?
Well, really my truth as a black man, you know, that my perspective that I haven't seen in film before. I haven't seen that represented.
Like?
So like in the party scene in Get Out, for example, it's a scene where you know, it's a group. He's the only black guy. It's a bunch of older white people who are trying to connect with him on his blackness first, and saying things like, you know, I know Tiger.
The movie Get Out has been heard and received, and that I'm seeing many other examples of art and film and television that are expressing these pains, frustrations, love in new ways, and that they're being received.
And Halloween is partly a female empowerment film that flips to the traditional final girl narrative onto its head.
I've waited for him.
Get out! Go home! Get inside!
I liked that it was a movie about trauma, and I liked that it explored it through generations.
Yeah.
And it just so happens that we're at a time in the universe where women are confronting the trauma of their lives and quite frankly, the perpetrator of that trauma, and saying no more. I'm going to take back the narrative of my life. And so the combination of that and the fact that they were talking about it through the lens of 3 generations mother passing that trauma and fear and anxiety onto her daughter.
You don't believe in the boogeyman?
He's here! Michael! You should.
But I'm having a very good time. The good time girl. When I said it out loud, it didn't sound as good. I couldn't be as proud of my original thought. I'm not trying to whisper what should take back, but I can't imagine.
Their newest Netflix offering, Cam, is an extremely low-budget film written by a former cam girl, which exposes the dangers of being famous online, as well as showcasing a largely unseen and progressive view on the lives of sex workers.
Last name. Holy shit.
What are you looking at? Nothing.
She's texting a boy.
Alice, I'm gonna tell her. My rank needs to be better. I'm like this close to breaking top 50. I can taste it.
Like any large production company producing over 50 films, there are going to be one or two films you greatly dislike, and with Blumhouse already looking to the future, there is bound to be a horror film or two you enjoy or are looking forward to. Outside of film, Blumhouse is even branching out and producing television. With streaming at an all-time high and premium television in high demand, Blumhouse has expanded their formula for success into television. Just in 2018, Blumhouse TV is currently airing an anthology series on Hulu called Into the Dark. Aired season 1 of The Purge on USA.
It touched a nerve about violence in the world, and particularly in the United States, and that's what made it cross over from a good, scary movie.
It's Purge night. Anything goes.
We are going to a TV series at the peak of the film's success.
Now we're given this 10 hours to really explore the universe.
Co-produced the smash HBO hit Sharp Objects.
Are you?
And signed a deal for 8 movies with Amazon. Blumhouse knows they can't remain satisfied. Rivals such as Lionsgate, who ruled horror in the early 2000s, and Universal, who has vowed to restart the Universal Monsters franchise, requires Blumhouse to continually innovate and, at times, look to past franchises and seek out ways in which they can acquire titles, such as Friday the 13th and A Nightmare on Elm Street.
Besides Halloween, you know, I really wanted to do Friday the 13th. I would love to do that movie. Maybe someday we'll get to do that one.
As we enter 2019, there is no denying we are in a horror renaissance. Blumhouse has had amazing success thus far, but competition will remain as It and A Quiet Place, both big budgets with notable casts, broke records in 2017 and 2018 respectively. Production company A24 had its highest grossing film ever, which was the horror film Hereditary.
I am your mother! Mom, what's happening? Make it stop! Make it stop!
I just don't want to put any more stress on my family.
A24 is known for their small-scale indie art house films, but they are also tapping into horror as well, with past releases such as The Witch, It Comes at Night, and The Killing of a Sacred Deer. Thanks to production companies like Blumhouse, horror is here to stay, and it looks like we won't be able to let our guard down anytime soon.
I'm Gray Drake with Rotten Tomatoes here at Universal Studios Halloween Horror Nights. I'm in front of the Horrors of Blumhouse maze, and Jason Blum is gonna go through this maze with me if it kills either one of us. I just want to be on record as saying that this is completely your fault.
This is all my
fault.
fault.
What we're about to do. So I guess it's appropriate if we play Truth or Dare. Well,
Okay,
because
Truth or
it's
Dare.
a distraction.
All right, let's
so
play Truth or Dare.
Jason
It'll
Blum,
keep your
Truth
mind
or-
off it.
Truth or Dare?
I dare.
All right, I dare you to jump in front of the first person that tries to scare me.
I'm gonna do it.
And
I didn't do it.
You sort of failed.
I sort of failed. Oh.
You failed. I'm shaking already.
Truth or Dare?
Truth.
Have you seen Truth or Dare yet?
I did see it.
Oh, I got her!
Oh no!
He's cutting his tongue out.
It's his tongue! It's the only way to end this game!
His tongue.
Does this bring bring up any uncomfortable childhood memories for you?
No, this is a very comfortable environment for me. I can actually sleep here. Oh no!
Listen, sister, I've been there.
She's really good.
She's gonna burn so many calories
I
tonight.
know. Oh.
I'm always scared this is gonna happen during my midterm.
Oh, this is a great movie. I want you to watch this. Just come over here. Yeah, now watch him up.
That was so mean. I don't like any of this.
That got me.
Oh my God.
That one got me.
I'm gonna have to mop my brow on your shirt. You owe me.
I owe you. I owe you. I owe you. I owe you.
Let's go drink now.
Let's go again.
Woo!